As we mentioned at the top of the program, Joe Biden talking about unifying the country. Reince Priebus saying that he's certainly unifying Republicans. But there is opportunity for Americans to be unified if we had the right leadership, because according to my next guest, there are some policy areas where both Democrats and Republicans are in agreement. Joining me now, Dr. George Barna. George, welcome back to the program.
Hey, Tony. Good to be with you.
Now, George, doing some work here, and I'm looking for my notes. Hold on, let me pull them up here. At the Cultural Research Center at Arizona Christian, you identified some policy areas where both Republican and Democrats show strong support for these initiatives.
Yeah, we looked at a couple of dozen different potential policy prescriptions, and we found 6 where even a supermajority of people, regardless of whether they voted for Mr. Biden or Mr. Trump, agreed that those 6 areas would be good. They'd be things that they would back. They were things that everybody said, yeah, we need these things, and we hope the president and his administration go for them.
All right, well, let's talk about it. What are they?
Well, the first of those was increasing the number of manufacturing jobs in the United States. More than 4 out of 5 people, regardless of whether they voted for Trump or Biden, supported that. Investing heavily in restoring the nation's infrastructure, again, more than 4 out of 5 were supportive of that. Making Social Security and Medicare financially solvent, 4 out of 5 people, regardless of who they voted for. Reducing the federal government's debt. There you had more than 3 out of 4 people supporting that. Reducing federal income taxes for individuals. Again, 3 out of 4. And increasing school choice for parents. Again, 3 out of 4 said that they were behind that.
Well, I don't see any of those things on the horizon when it comes to the present administration and the Democratic-controlled Congress.
Yeah, and of course, it's interesting when we looked at many of the things that the Biden administration has been talking about, what we discovered is that by and large, those are things that will continue to divide the country. So really, I think we're in a situation here where if you're going to talk about the importance of national unity, if you're going to position yourself as a leader who's committed to bringing unity to the nation, you don't do it by bringing your own desires and trying to, kind of force people to accept those. What you do as a leader is you look at what is it that people say, yeah, we want these things. And we have to remember that these are individuals who are voted in by the people to represent them, not to jam other things down their throats, but to try to figure out what is it that the people believe the nation needs to look like, what's going to be best for the nation, what are they going to be excited and passionate about and willing to support. And so here we have a series of things that make total sense for the country, but the question is, what kind of leadership are we going to get?
George Barna, one, I find I'm not surprised by it, because even in my time in office, I have found that parents want the best for their children, and they understand that education is a key building block for success, and our public school system is not delivering. It's too focused, well, like we were just talking about a minute ago, how this administration wants to focus on this radical transgender agenda, and something has to fall by the wayside. And I think what's been happening increasingly over the years is the core purpose of our educational system to educate our children. Those core curriculum items, not Common Core, but those core issues are falling to the wayside to make room for this radical agenda. So parents are saying, hey, give me a choice. Let me choose what's best for my children.
Yeah, and a couple of things about school choice. I mean, one of those is, remember that during the past year, because of the pandemic, most children have not been able to go back to their school setting. And so parents have had a much bigger role in the educating of their children. And as they've been involved in that, sometimes working with teachers in the public schools or other schools, they've discovered exactly what it is that's happening with their children in the classroom. And so we've got more and more parents now who are saying, whoa, I didn't know this is what's happening. I want to take greater control over the education of my children. As a result, of now having greater insight into what's really taking place. And of course, the other thing is that when you talk about choice, that fits with the worldview of Americans today, where they say that I want you to give me a menu. I don't want you making the choices for me. If I'm responsible for the outcomes as the parent, I want to be the one making the choices.
Yeah, and as you said, this one, 3 out of 4 parents, 73% of Americans want to give parents more choices in the education of their children. 75% of Trump supporters and 72% of Biden backers want to see school choice. But history would tell us that Republicans will readily embrace school choice, but not the Democrats, because it puts them in conflict with one of their key support bases, and that is the educational lobby.
Yeah, I mean, unions are a big part of their support base, so certainly they don't want to give that up. And schools, of course, you look over the years at leaders of totalitarian regimes, and they've always said, you give me the children for a few years, and I'll be able to rule for a long time. And so they use the schools, they kind of weaponize schools as a mechanism for making sure that they retain power. It's not in the best interests of the people, but it is in their own best interests.
Yeah, so true. And I think we're seeing the same thing in this country to a large degree. George Barna, thanks so much for joining us. We're going to get you back on here in the next week or so. We want to talk about biblical worldview, some exciting things happening here at FRC with your involvement. We're going to talk more about that in the coming days. So thanks for joining us today.